When do we finish Thursday?
Thursday. I'm hoping to finish Wednesday, but Thursday is the day that Daf Yomi finishes. Okay, we are up to the third line on the top of Daf Kuftes Vav Amud Aleph. Zok the Heilige Gemara, Itmar. Let's float us down as well, because on Shabbos and Shul we stopped after the Mishnah. So I started after the Mishnah, but we're starting from Itmar, so we have a head start. Itmar. Gonav umochar the achigach hukar agan. So in the case of the Mishnah, where the lakeach has to give up what he bought, yet he gets to get paid back, that's where the Ganav, no one knows who it is, right? Lakeach bought it from the market. He had no idea about stolen goods. We know it was originally stolen, but there's no recourse. It's only the owner and the Lakeach. But what if Hukar Ganav? What if we know who the Ganav is? So now there's someone else here that we have recourse that we can go after. So Ganav Machar V'Yacha Hukar Ganav, Rab Mishmeid Rab Chia Amar Hadinam Arishon. You know who the owner of the object goes after? He goes after the Ganav, the first guy. He has no business talking to the Lakeach. His business is with the Ganav. No, he can go seize the object away from the Sheni. So before we move forward on this, we need to scratch our memories as to how this fits in with earlier things that we learned. So the most nearest past that we have is our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that he gets paid. So when we have Rab Chia Amar Hadin Imar Rishon, our Mishnah says that the owner can take it back, right? So it's not a Imar Rishon. So for that, the answer is it's Hukar Agan. Our Mishnah is speaking by Loy Hukar Agan. So there is no Ganav in the picture. This Machlok is speaking Hukar Agan. But we had another interesting case. The very first Gemara, thank you so much. The very first Gemara in this parak was Amar Rab Chisda. Gozal Veloy Nisyashu Abaylim. Ubo Acher V'Ochloi. Rot Mizagoy Rot Mizagoy. Rab Chisda said that if there was no Yish Bailim, both people are the Baldov. Now, of course, in Rab Chisda's case, the guy who came and ate it didn't buy it. But nevertheless, the Balt I wasn't Miyayish, I still have connection to both of them. We look at both of them like they stole it from the owner. The owner has a right to directly approach whichever one he wants, and he'll, of course, pick whoever it's easier. So how does that fit into our case? In our case as well, it was stolen. Someone bought it from him. According to Reb Chisda, Pashtus, the owner should have a right to engage with whomever he wants. Right. So right. So these are, I just throwing out the ideas because we have to see how Reb Chisda fits in to this machloikas over here. So Zok to Gemara, Amar Reb Yosef. Reb Yosef wanted to say, in fact, Veloy Pligi. There's no machloikas here at all. Kan lefnei the shita of Rav, who says, I'm sorry, the shita of Rabbi Yochanan, who says that Adina Masheni, the owner could even go claim from the person who bought it, is speaking lefnei yish, and therefore Adina Masheni, because the Sheni is considered to have a direct link to the original owner. And Kan la'achar yish, when Rav said that Adina Marisha, and the owner of the object has no right to take it away from the Lakeach, that's speaking la'achar yish, and therefore when the person bought it from the Ganav, from the Goslin, he was koinit and Gantin, and the Bailim only have a claim with the Ganav, Adina Marisha. And Vitarvayu is Lud Rab Chisda, but they both told Rab Chisda, meaning before Yush, anyone involved is fair game for the owner to collect from. But if it was after Yush, Rab Chisda himself says that you can no longer collect from the secondary person. Let's see Rashi. Dear Rab Chisda,
to be exclusive of Sheni.
So you brought that up. So you might ask, how could Rav hold like a Chisda? It says a Dinan Rishon. What about Sheni? It's both. It's both, right? So no. Dinan Rishon means only with the Rishon, because the Gemara is saying that speaking after Yish. Speaking after Yish. The Gemara says now. Rabbi Yosef said he's speaking after Yish. But you could ask Rabbi Yochanan, who says Dinan Sheni, you sure he did them both. Right? So let's see what Rashi says. Rabbi Chisda goes over in the Shaishua Bailam. And that's how we started this pair. Behind Nami, this case as well. The only difference here is that the person who ate, who consumed, who damaged the goods, paid for them. Nevertheless, that's his relationship with the Ganav, so the Ganav ripped him off. But the Ganav High, as far as the biome is concerned, I don't give two hoots whether you paid for it or not. You have my object, like a Bahai Mio Gazlanu. However, if we didn't know the Ganav was like in our Mishnah, there we're going to protect the buyer. Imagine if you knew anytime you bought something, someone could come and take it away from you and claim that it's stolen goods. It will literally grind commerce to a halt. So therefore, in order to protect people, they made it to Shuk that at least little mashanosim. Even if they're going to seize what I purchased, at least I can ask to be paid, to be reimbursed for what I paid. But if we know who the Ganav is, then you don't need to come to Shuk. You were ripped off. Go after the Ganav, all of the go after the person who sold you the stolen goods. We're going to soon see that there are limitations to the Konas Shuk. If you buy it off the back of a truck in a dark parking lot behind 500 kilo, Boys does know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about? There used to be big clearing grounds for goods. That part has a building at 500 kilo in St. Clair. Behind it, there was a big empty yard. And every night there would be tractor trailers pulling up, selling all the stolen goods. If you wanted to find anytime you heard about a tractor trailer that got hijacked, and everything that was liquidated behind that plaza. They probably did more business there than the whole Toronto because that was all GST free.
You could get 10% cut.
Yeah, that's right. I want to tell you something. There was no global warming in that parking lot. It was so hot over there. Everything was hot. Anyway, so the halacha is there's a Takanos Hashuk, but otherwise there's no Takanos Hashuk. So we still need to understand how will you understand if Yochim said Dinah Masheni, it must mean Afim, I think. That's what it must mean. In other words, according to Reb Chisda, not only does the original owner who took the loss have recourse to go after the Ganav, but he also has the option to go after the purchaser. So Amr Rabbi Yosef Pligi Kan Lefnei Yush Adina Masheni Kan Lachi Yush Adina Marishan. V'Tervayu Isl Reb Chisda. Everybody else Reb Chisda. Moshe, you know, I didn't have that you made a bar mitzvah yesterday. Mazel tov. You see a lot of.
Thank you very much. Simcha by you.
The chasana, the einiglich, be healthy and strong with your wife to marry off generations and generations and lead them to Mashiach.
Amen. Right, mitzvah by you to everybody in
say
the
that, amen. If it would say that to Moshe Sharp, he'd be told, what do you mean lead them to Mashiach? But you, I hope, accept that as a bracha. Okay. Zok to Gemara, Amar le Abaye. Zok to Abaye. V'loi pligi, are you really telling me that they don't argue and everybody agrees with the Chisda? I'm going to prove to you that the Rav who said Adin im Harishon says it even Lefnei Yush, and in fact he argues with the Chisda. Where am I going to prove it from? Hamatnas Kahuna. Hamatnas Kahuna kilefnei Yush dami. Matnas Kahuna is like Lefnei Yush, and Rashi says because all Kohanim are Breslovers. The Kohanim loy miyash minayu. Ain't kan Yush. So if you want to find an Aveda, don't pick up an Anachi Amaka, because you can know for sure there's no Yush. And there'll never be Yush. But or if you find Big De Kahuna, there's never going to be Yush. Yeah, okay. I mean Matnas Kahuna. So Upligi, yet you find Rav holds that in fact the din is not a Marishon, the din is with the Sheni even. So you clearly see that Rav argues on a Chisda. The time we learned, Amar Loi, what if someone goes to a butcher and he tells the butcher, I want to buy the whole package deal, all of its intestines. V'hayuba matanos, of course, in the Matnas Kunas, Zeroya Chalai L'chayim and Keva. Keva is one of the stomachs. So if you buy all the intestines, you're buying one of the stomachs that should go to the kohen. So the halacha is the purchaser noisnan l'kohen. He has to give that to the kohen. And he can't go back to the moicher and say, I want you to reimburse me. Why? Because I bought the whole package deal. The whole package deal means now you're going to deal with it. But what if he went to the butcher and said, give me 10 pounds of intestines, and he threw in a pound of matas kuna? They're still nice to the kohen. The lakeich still has to give the matas kuna to the kohen, but at least at least he can get credited back what he paid for that matas kuna. And here's the clincher. Rav says, this only applies in a self-serve butcher shop, where the maisa of Geneva, so to speak, from the kohen was done by the purchaser himself. The purchaser took it. That's where the purchaser, regardless, has to give the matas kuna to the kohen, and then the shaila is, does he have recourse to go back to the moicher or not? But what if what if the butcher took everything and gave it to him? So now it's as if the butcher was the ganav here, and the lakeach is the lakeach. Then hadinim atabach. Then the lakeach doesn't even have to give the matas kuna. Lakeach can keep the matas kuna, and the kohen has to go claim from the tabach, because the tabach is considered the ganav. So what does that tell you? That tells you that if there's a ganav and there's no yiyush, the Baal doesn't have no right to go to the next guy. He only could go to the ganav. So that's not like Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda said as long as there's no yiyush, the Baal has a right to go to the ganav or to the person who acquired it. Yet Rav says clearly, Adinim Arishain, the Baal, which in this case is the Kohen, only has a right to take it from the butcher who's the ganav and not from the lakeach. I'm sorry? Yeah, but you have to ask him for the money, right? If it's not around, he has to want the money. You have to give me the value of it. You stole my keva. Zok Gemara.
The theory is that the tabach already got paid for that cable.
That's right.
So he has the value in his hands.
That's right. Okay, so Zok Gemara. Ema, maybe what you should say, Rav Paskind, is not hadinim atavach. Ema af hadinim atavach. Not only can he claim from the lakeach, he can also apply for the tabach, which is what you alluded to earlier in Rebbe. Meaning avada, he holds a kapchista, and avada, he can go after the purchaser of the keva, but he can also go after the ganav. Frag the Gemara, why do I need a Mishnah to tell me? Why do I need Rav to tell me that he can go after the ganav? Why would he not be able to go after the ganav? Talk to Gemara. That's a huge chiddush involved, and this is a big eye opener about how matas kuna works. Ma'odetema, you might have said matas kuna in an exolois. I think the Bach changes it around. Yeah, matas kuna in an exolois. You might have thought that matas kuna cannot get stolen. If your balta cannot get stolen, you go after the person who's currently holding it. So the ganav is out of the picture because he could. It's not considered theft. It's always belonging to the kohen. So who is the only person that you have recourse with? The person who's currently holding them. The lakeach. Kamash Malon. No, it's like anything else, where Rav Chisda's rule applies. Rotzim izagoi v'rotzim izagoi. Why should matas kahuna be perhaps better than anything else? So Rashi says a bam shal chiddush. I think it's a bam shal chiddush. The lima kiniya ditu. There's a huge strength in the kinyan that a kohen has over the matas kahuna. The mikoyach gavoya kalsely, because he's getting it from the Rebbeinu Shalom. That means it's there permanently, and no matter where it is, it always belongs to the kohen. We never perceive like it's stolen. Even if the ganav was the butcher, because he was the one who gave it to the lakeach, nevertheless, Akiva, at first I was worried that you would feel left out. What about Matas Levia?
No,
but Rashi says the reason is the Mikoyach Kavaya Kalsulay. So Ma'asher is also Mikoyach Kavaya. So you're good.
No, you can't. It's a Levi can get stolen. You don't have the same.
Well, the Kamash Malon is even Matas Kuna gets stolen. You forgot about the Kamash Malon. You're good. Don't get too excited with the half a minute. There's a maskana on here.
It's interesting.
You think you have a better claim? That's
No, I just understand the Havamina. So because it belongs to Rebbeinu Shalom, it never leaves the Rebbeinu Shalom's rishus.
It doesn't say
That's
that.
it.
It says the
That's
coin's
what I'm
rishus.
reading.
So
I
the
don't know what
coin's
it
rishus.
says. I
So
know
if your
that-
Rebbeinu Shalom gave it to the coin, never leaves the coin's rishus.
Coin is an extension of the Rebbeinu
Right.
Shalom.
It's a
That's the
direct gift.
idea. It's a direct line.
Next
So
thing
the
I
coin
know,
is- coin doesn't-
next thing I know, you're going to say the Levi is an extension of the Rebbeinu Shalom. But the truth of the matter is, the Gemara does say that. The Gemara wanted to know, are Kohanim Shlucha Didon or the Shlucha Derechmana? So the Gemara fears always the Shlucha Derechmana. Because mi kamidi, that you yourself can't do, yet your Shliach can do it for you. You can't do that void. So how could you be man the Shliach? So you're right. The Kohanim are an extension of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Okay. Doesn't say that about Levi.
The VMR are just nothing, only.
They're enablers.
Yeah.
They're the enzymes that make everything happen. Zok the Gemara. Ule Abaye, the Omar, Pligi, Abaye, right, he jumped on Rab Yosef, and he said, V'loi Pligi? Of course, Rav is arguing. And Rav Avada holds that you could only collect from the Rishon. So what was Abaye thinking? Ula Abaye dam pligi b'may pligi. So tomorrow, you know what Abaye thought? That pligi de Rav Chisda. Abaye thought that Rav disagrees with Rav Chisda. While Rav Chisda says Ratzim Izagoiva, Rav held only Hadin and Marisha. But Lamaskana, we actually have a way to say that this stems with Rav Chisda as well, and all Rav meant was Af im Hatabach, but Avada he could mon from the Sheni as well. Rav Zvid has a whole different shot in this shaila. So again, we have a machlokes between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan whether or not you go after the Rishon or you go after the Sheni. Rav Zvid wants to say as well that everybody agrees with the Chisda. So goes over like Nishai Shvabailim, Ratzimizeg, Achlayacher, Ratzimizeg. So why over here would you say that you don't mon from the Sheni? Now we all know that Rav Chisda agrees that if there was Yush, the Ganav stole it, there was Yush. Then the Ganav sold it. Everybody agrees there is no recourse from the owner to go to the Lakeach. Right? Rav Chisda said is halacha goes over loy nisyayish b'bayim. But after Yush, if there's Yush by the Ganav and then the Ganav sells it, everybody agrees that you could only go to the Ganav. There's no recourse to the Lakeach. What happened over here is instead of there being Yush first and Shini Rishus second, there was Shini Rishus first and Yush second. So is that a good kinyan when it's out of order? But for lo nisyaishu biyad Ganav. So the question is Yush and Shini Rishus is the order ma'akiv? How do we know it? We must have asked them. Yeah, we must have heard of him. Guys, Mar Savar Yush the Achach Shini Rishus. Even though it's out of order, but Shini Rishus v'achach Yush loikani. Forget one of them hold only in order. It's kind of, and otherwise it's not kind of. And that will be Rabbi Yochanan. That's why you can collect even from the Sheni. Umar Savar and Mavadol loishna. It doesn't matter either way. It's kind of. Either way it's kind of, and therefore you can only collect from the Rishon and not from the Sheni.
Yush on its own is not considered a Shini Rishus.
No.
Don't tell me that. No, it's not.
At this point, anybody can say about any shiloh you'll ask. We learned it already because we're at the end of the Masechta. You see, the odds are with, and we learned it already. What should have been a machlokes b'talui? So I heard a very nice shot. There are those who learn is who is mishadach these two things, Yush and Shini Rishus. So how do they come together? The teretz is v'atim Shini Rishus is like a Shini Ma'aser. It should be kind of Norvos. It's be surah asaliyodei because the Bailam word b'ayisha. All the Yush does is it makes it that the Shini Rishus was beheter asaliyodei.
Allows it to transfer ownership.
Right. So if you learn that it has to be in that order, then it makes sense that the reason why you need the Yush is so that the Shini Rishus are really the kinyan of the Shini Rishus. The Yush just makes it that the Shini Rishus should be with beheter asaliyodei. But if you hold that it doesn't matter, then they're each individual components that contribute to a kinyan, and the order doesn't matter.
This nafkamina is if it's in your own rishus and you're in the Aish and something that you can't find.
Which happens
It happens all the time.
The only person who's telling you there is a very bonus. Okay. So again, everybody holds a Rav Chisda, and the question is, Rav Chisda only said as halacha before Yush. The question is, what would be if there was Shini Rishus first and then Yush? Rav Papa Amar. It seems like everybody wants to say that everybody agrees with the Chisda. But Papa also says, Avada we hold like a Chisda. And therefore, Beglima, if you're talking about the actual stolen object, the Chula Alma loy pligi the Hadul Amare. So we're speaking before Yush. So Rav Chisda's rule still applies. And Rav Chisda's rule is Ratzim Izagoiva. And that's true. He has a right, the owner has a right to go to the purchaser and grab his object back. So what's the machlokes between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan? After I grab my object back from the lakeach, do I have to pay him what his losses are? Rav Mishmeid Rab Chia Amar Hadin Marisha. The only din here is, and what Rashi tells is, up until now, when we said Hadin Marisha, Hadin Masheni, who are we talking about? Who's din? We were talking about the owner of the object. Does he have recourse with the Rishon, the Ganev, or does he also have recourse with the Sheni, the buyer? Now that's not what we're talking about anymore. Hadin that we're talking about is the poor purchaser who had the item that he purchased from him seized away. Who does he have recourse with? There, Rav says, Hadinim Arisha. I don't have any right to ask the original owner to pay me off. Rather, I only have recourse to go back to the Ganav himself. Dinah the Lekeach, the Lishko Zuzi Miganav. The only recourse the Lekeach has, who now lost the object that he purchased, is to go back to the seller. He can leave him a bad review on Amazon, but his only recourse is to go back to the seller and get paid from the seller. And that's what Rav meant. Dinah Marishain, the recourse that the purchaser has is with the Ganav. Also by Takanos Hashuk, there's no Takanos Hashuk to make the owner pay the purchaser back at least what he spent for it. Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yanai Amar Hadina Masheni, I have a right to demand, even from the owner, I have a right to demand that he pay me. Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yanai Amar Hadina Masheni, Dina Lakeach, the Lishkal Mi Balabayis, he can take from the Balabayis, but also boy Takanos Hashuk.
And then what? And then
That's why it's Hadina Masheni, because the
owner has to go after the Ganav to get.
the owner will have to go up to that. Yeah. So now the question is, I don't understand something. I don't understand something. You have Reb Chisda. Reb Chisda says that goes over the owner can take from anyone that he wants, right? Right? But Rabbi Yochanan said the owner can go take from anyone he wants, and then Rabbi Yochanan, the purchaser can go back to the owner and say, "Pay me up." So basically, he neutralized Rabbi Chisda's whole halacha. Rabbi Chisda's whole halacha is that I can either take my object from the Ganav, I can get the Ganav to pay me, or I can go to the person who has it and I can seize it from him. But if I have to pay him, so it's neutralized Rabbi Chisda. So what's the big thing of Rabbi Chisda? So Rashi is very simple. This whole thing of the Konos Hashuk is only if the guy bought it. If the guy bought it, I got to pay him back. But what if you have Rabbi Chisda's case? Goes over he didn't pay for it. He just ate it. There's not the Konos Hashuk. And in such a case, I could seize the product. I can make the guy pay me back because he is my baldin. He damaged me directly, and I don't have to give him a penny. So he has to pay me for it. You damaged my stuff. So Reb Chisda stands independent of this Takanos Hashuk. Sometimes in the Chisda's case, where the owner was able to seize it from the purchaser, there's now a new thing called Takanos Hashuk. But that doesn't take away from Reb Chisda's halacha. It doesn't neutralize Reb Chisda's halacha. It only applies in certain cases where the owner was able to seize it back. So what are you saying now? The Sava Rab also boy Takanos Hashuk. Rab, by saying Hadina Marishan, basically you're saying this poor Lakech who had his item seized away, he cannot ask the owner to pay him what he laid out. How could you say that? But Rav Huna Talmidei de Rav. Rav Huna was a Talmud of Rav, and surely any psak that Rav Huna gave would have complied with Rav Shita. The Chanan Bisha is really an intriguing. It stands for Chanan, son of a Bisha. Because so Chanan Bisha was a bad guy. Ganav Glima, I have to make sure we're recording. Yeah, Baruch Hashem. Ganav Glima, he stole a baguette, Vizovna, and he sold it to a third party. Also, the Kamei Rav Huna, the owner came to Rav Huna and said, "This guy stole it, and if he gave it to a third party, I want it back." So what did Rav Huna tell him to do? Obviously, based on what he knows from Rav, Omelelu Gavra, too bad for you, Zil Shari Avuta. You have to redeem your object, meaning you could go seize it from the buyer, but you have to pay for it. Is that not at the Konos Hashuk? So, and that's Rav, because Rav Huna would talk like Rav. So you see clearly there is at the Konos Hashuk, because Rav's Talmud paskin that the Bailam that's seizing the object back from the poor purchaser has to pay for it. Dr. Gemara is a very big difference. Shiny Chanan Bisha was a big, tough, mean guy. What am I going to tell this poor purchaser? Go after Chanan Bisha? He's a drug dealer. He's going to blow your head off. You're afraid of him. So it's Kaloi Hukerdom. So when do we say there's no Takanos Hashuk? That's if you have recourse. But if you don't have recourse, then there's a Takanos Hashuk. So most of the time, if you know the Ganav, you have recourse. Here you have an example of a Ganav who's a son of a Chanan Bisha that you can't go after him. Therefore, we'll make a Takanos Hashuk for him as well.
We discussed this before. There has to be a caveat emptor of a buyer beware who you're buying it from.
Oh, Amar Rava, this is exactly the Gemara is waiting for you. Amar Rava, im Ganav Meforsamu, if you're buying it off a truck at the back of 530 kilo, there's no Takanos There's no takanas hashuk there because you know you're buying stolen material. Im ganav mefursemu loy asavoy takanas hashuk. If you bought it from a source where you know its origins are shady, of course there is no takanas hashuk. Fragt Gemara, v'chanan bisha the mefursem ava. Chanan bisha, this guy bought it to the chanan bisha. What did he think he was getting? A serial with a serial number that's traceable to the original manufacturer, and yet also by takanas hashuk. So the Gemara is splitting hairs. That's why I said it. He wasn't a Ganav. He was a son of Abisha. Nehidim of forcing Lebishusa. Hitaka was a lowlife. But Liknevusa Lemefursam. I know he's a bad guy. I didn't know he's a crook. I know he does all the mitzvahs in the world, but I didn't know that he's a Ganav. Right? So Mamela, he's a murderer, and I know if I try to get my refund, I'm risking my kneecaps. But Azoivite, I didn't have to know that he stole it. Will make Hatakonas Hashuk for him as well. What do you think that matters? Gewaltig. Zog the Gemara, weiter. Now you know why yesterday the Gemara said, I don't want to go to Bezin, I'll never get my money back. You know the story with a fellow was a guest in town. So you see in shul a guest in town, you know, you ask him where you're staying, what are you doing, how can I help you? So he says, I'm here on business, I'm staying in the Holiday Inn over there, and Baruch Hashem, everything's good. You're staying in the Holiday Inn? We're a city, Toronto, you see the Holiday Inn? You have to stay by me. He said, no, I'm very happy, I have my setup there, I have privacy, it's good, I'm good. He says, I'll give you movies for free. You don't even have to pay. You don't have to pay. And the room service by me is kosher. Well, why would? There's only one thing we can't offer that the Holiday Inn offers. But besides that, it's better by me in Gansen. It's better by me in Gansen. So he was pressuring. He says, listen, I'm happy where I am. He said, no, I'm going to show up 6 o'clock tonight at the hotel. Have your luggage ready. I'll even come earlier so you don't have to get late check-in, late checkout. And I'm taking my house. So okay, fine. He's insisting. So he moves to the guys to find the guy. He comes to shul a couple of days, and the whole day he's busy. Works. At the end of the 3 days, he says, "I really appreciate your help. I'm finished my business. I'm ready to go back." Says fine. So he gives him a piece of paper. He opens it up. There's a bill there. $300 a night, luxury suite, movie rental, kosher food, room service. He said, "What in heavens are you doing over here?" So he says, "You stay by my house. I'm going to give you a bill. What's the problem?" He says, "Are you nuts? I was happy to stay in the hotel. I thought you invited me. You wanted to host me because she said, of course I wanted to host, but of course you're going to pay. What's the shaila?" He said, "You are crazy. There's no way I'm paying you." He said, "I'm not paying you." "Oh, I'm taking you to the Torah." So he slaps him into the Torah, and the Rav hears his tat. So he asked him, "Were you in the henna? Like otherwise you would have had to pay hotel?" He says, "Yeah." "No, you have to pay." So this guy's freaking out. He's freaking out. He counts out like $700. What? He's freaking out. He counts out $700, and he's freaking out. And he gives it to his host. He's fuming. So Donna's host asks, "Can I drive you to the airport?" He says, "How much are you going to charge me for that? I'm taking an Uber. I don't need you." So he says, "No, I promise you, I will not charge you, not even a dime." Right? So he says, "Okay, fine, I'll go with you. I spent you $700 already. I'll take a free shuttle to the airport." So he gets to the airport, and as he's about to get out of the car, the guy takes the $700 that was given to him and says, "Here's your money back. I never have it. Take your money." He said, "You got to me, Shigga. You drive me crazy. You sent me to Bezdin, and now you're sending me back. What's the matter with you?" He says, "I never had to have him take any money. I just wanted to show you what type of rabbunim we have in our city." That's such an anti-Semitic joke.
When is an appropriate time to say this?
Not
I can only say it in Adar. I don't know I couldn't say it.
Don't say it over the scene.
No, I won't say that.
You can say it like.
Dr. Mark. Idmar, Gonav upara b'choyv. That's definitely not an art. Idmar, we have to go by because I feel bad Moshe's getting nauseous. Idmar, it once happened. Idmar, Gonav upara b'choyv. Gonav upara b'choyv. What happens if he didn't sell it? The Ganav owed money to somebody, so he used it to pay up. So let's think about it. Normally, what's the whole problem with the Konos Hashuk? If I buy something and I'm in risk of losing everything, I won't want to buy anything. But when I lent the guy money, not to do it how he's going to pay me. I lent him the money because I trusted him. So when he's paying me back, I can't say I wouldn't have lent money if I'm not going to get to keep that mashkin. Or I'm not going to keep that item. So therefore, or Ganav or Parba Kefa, he owed a store money he paid. They're like also about the concept of shuk, because clearly the person accepting that wasn't relying on that when he originally extended the credit. The Amri, these people say, when we say loy adaita dahani yahivish lemidi, you definitely didn't give him the credit. You didn't extend him the credit because of these items. You didn't even know about these items. Now, normally we know if you want to apply for credit, you put up collateral like a piece of property. They never will finance 100% of the value of the property, right? You have to have equity in it. 20%, 30%, 40%, and now it's probably higher because of interest rates. Loan to value, what is it now? 70% loan to value? I don't even know. 65% loan to value, right? That's the rule now. It's the same thing in those days. I will never lend you money if you gave me a mashkin for the full value of your mashkin. I'm going to discount it. So what happens if mashkanta shavi mo'asan b'mo? I lent you money, I lent you $100, and you gave me a mashkin worth $200. They're also going to come to shuk because I'm only lending you the money because you gave me this object. If I'm going to lose this object, I would have never lent you the money. So it's going to cause a problem of me not wanting to lend money on the mashkin. I guess that's what the shuk is. Anything to do with commerce, anything that'll stunt commerce. What about shava b'shava? What if I lent you the full value of it, which would indicate that I'm just lending you the money regardless, and I trust you. The mashkin is just for extra layer. So a meimer amar lo also by the shuk because clearly he's lending the money based on trust, not based on the mashkin. Or zutra amar also by the shuk. How about zvina shava b'shava? What if you buy something? The Lakeach bought something for $100, and there was $100, which is what we've been talking about all along. Also by the shuk. But what if he bought shava meya b'mosa? What if he overpaid by double? Maybe that means I really want to give the guy a gift, but I want to make him feel good, so I'm severely overpaying him. So really, it has nothing to do with the mashkin. I just wanted to pay you. I wanted to pay you more. Rav Sheshes Amar loy also by takan shuk. Rav Amar also by takan shuk. The hilchazah bekulu. All these shalos that we have also by takan shuk. Levar miganev upar b'chayvay or ganav upar b'kev. And Tosfos adds, as well as if you stole from a babus ganev, and you knew that the chances are this is stolen. I'm sorry, if you bought from a babus ganev and you had good reason to know, you knew or you have ought to known, as they say in legalese, that it could be stolen, there is no takan shuk for that. Okay, now we have another interesting gemara. Let me ask you a question. What would you hold? Would let's say Schwartz wanted to take me to the Torah. Rabbi Lowy's son-in-law. I'm sorry. Let's say Rabbi Lowy wanted to take me to the Torah, right? And Rabbi Lowy has a son-in-law who's a dying.
What you said about Rabbanim in the
Right.
city.
Rabbi Lowy has a son-in-law who's a dying, right? I think Sharf is a dying. I think even he's a dying. I think even Steinwurzel's dying.
His son.
Shlomi's a dying too. Shlomi's a dying. Okay, I thought he's a chemist. I thought he
That too, that's
Oh
right.
no! I thought he's Johnny Walker. The second. So Rabbi Lowy takes her to his
They're dying for what?
son-in-law.
They're dying to do what?
Would you think that would be allowed?
Would you,
Would you think that would-
they're dying to do what?
Dying.
Okay.
Take what to somebody who's
Rabbi
related.
Lowy take me to the Torah by his Adam. Of course,
Nobody by age. Nobody should be related.
maybe the Adam would Badavka want to be Mechayiv sure. It could work both ways. No?
I know what he means by age, but I'm saying there can never be a
Okay.
relative.
Okay, so let's look at this Gemara. Avimai bar Nazi Chamud Ravina. Avimai bar Nazi was the father-in-law of Ravina. Someone owed Avimai, the father-in-law of Ravina, 4 zuzim. So what did the loiva do? Ganav glima. The loiva stole the beged. Osyunahale. He brought it back to Avimai, and I guess it was worth a lot of money. So based on that, Uspei Arba Zuzi Achrini. Now Avimai extended the loan, and now it's up to 8. L'soif hukar aganim. At the end, it was found that the whole thing was stolen. So also lakamei de Ravina. So what happened is the owner of the no. The father-in-law came. The father-in-law came to Avima came to his son-in-law. This is exactly why I'm asking. The son-in-law of Avimai came to Ravina, and you're going to see Ravina paskened favorably to his father-in-law, and there's people who argue and say no, not favorably. But here Ravina argues favorably for his father-in-law. What did he say? Omar, let's look at it. The first four zuz that the owner of the beged wants to claim from you. The first four zuz, I'm sorry, the owner took away the beged. You want to claim that four zuz from the owner of the beged. So the first four zuz you cannot claim from the owner because that's ganav upar b'chayv. When you lent the ganav the money, you lent it without any mashkin at all. So you can't go back because of takonos hashuk and ask the owner of the beged to give you that. However, for the boiler mesa, it doesn't have to give him a lemidi. But Hanachar Bozuzay, the second four zuz you gave him was only after he gave you the mashkin. So there you can argue, I would have never lent him the money without getting the beged. So there maybe there should be at the takonos hashuk, and you should be able to claim from the owner when the owner takes the beged away from you. He should say, pay me up at least four zuz. So therefore, Hanachar Bozuzay achrini shekoil zuzach v'adaglimi. You have a right to demand the owner when he takes the beged away from you. He at least has to pay you four zuz. So Ravina Paskin in favor of his father-in-law, at least he recovered four of the zuz. Right. Matskavlo Rav Kohen. Did you ever hear of a Rav Kohen? I never heard of him, but I'm assuming since he heard about Matnas Kahuna, his interest perked up and he came to the blood. Right. So Matnas Rav Kohen. Vidilma, how do you know that's what happened? Why are you touching up the story this way? Vidilma Glima Bahani Zuze Kamoi Yoiv and Ahele. Maybe when he gave him the beged, when the Ganav gave the beged to Ravina's father-in-law, it was to pay up in full the choiv that he had for Zuzim. And if that's the case, it's gonna upar b'choivoi, gonna upar b'keifoi, and you're not entitled to a penny. And the last four, barba Zuzim basrahim unemnei, kehechet emne meikara. Maybe he's not lending him money based on the mashkin. Maybe he trusted it the first time he got paid back, and now it's a whole new loan without a mashkin. So maybe you should be entitled to nothing at all. Igalgal milsa matala kamed Rabavo, and Rabavo made a clear determination. Amar hilchasa karavkoi. So this is a funny gemara. We have to understand how was it that Rabbeinu was able to weigh in on a din Torah, unless Kubi wasn't din Torah. His father asked him advice.
The litigants are masking.
So speaking with a litigant,
I
would be masking. I trust 100%. I would be masking. Ich halte nicht wie der guy with the house, with the Airbnb in his house. I would trust the Lubanot. Zog the Gemara weiter. I had to redeem myself. Okay. Zog the Gemara weiter. Any time the Gemara speaks about corruption, it always involves papuno. Do you know what the significance of papuno is?
It's a euphemism name.
No, there's a riding in Canada that's called Papineau. And do you know who the MP of that riding is?
Trudeau.
What does it? So the Gemara is highly politicized. I'm just reading the Gemara of the state.
and predicts the future.
So Zak the Gemara, Nirsha, gun of Safra, Nirsha stole the sefer from Moshe Pipik. Zavne le Papuna. He sold it to Papuna. There's actually Machloikis Rishonim if Papuna was the name of a person, and if Nirsha was the name of a person, or it just means a tzaddik from the city of Nirsha stole a sefer and sold it to a paid tzaddik because he paid him for it from Papuna, right? And then this, and how much did the fellow from Papuna pay for it? V'tamnin Zuza, he paid 80 zuz. Also Papuna zavnei lebar muchuzah b'mei versem zuzi. Papuna made business. He paid 80 and he sold it. He did a 33% markup. He sold it for 120 zuz. He made 40 zuz on the deal. Okay, l'soif at the end of the day. So the machlokes is again, if for sure bar levar mechuzah means someone who lived in chuzah. There's one Rishon who learns Narsha and Papuna is the same. Someone who lived in Narsha, someone who lived in Papuna. But there are those who learn, Tosfos learns that Narsha and Papuna were actually names of people, and so we have the actual name of the person involved. The person from Mechuzah, we don't know his name, we just know where he's from. So L'soif Hukar Ganav, they found out that this whole thing was a scam. It was a Ganav. So now the question is the owner of the Kalim, what does he do? Amar Baya, Lezel Mori de Safra, the owner of the Sefer can go, he's going after the Bar Mechuzah because that's the guy who's holding his Sefer now. And how much will he give him? He'll give him Tam Non Zuzi he only is going to give him 80 zuz. V'shokol safrei, and then he'll take a safer, meaning the bar mechuzah got ripped off because he paid 120 and he only gets paid back 80. He loses 40. And what does he have to do now? V'shokol safrei, v'alzo bar mechuzah, v'shokol arban mipipadah. And then he can go back to the papunah and he can say, you got to give me the other 40. The other 40. Frank the Gemara, which means that we're not protecting the bar mechuzah. The last purchaser is not being protected. He's out of pocket 40, right? So Frank the Gemara, why would we not protect him? If the Ganav, if the person who actually bought it from the Ganav, he gets protected and he gets paid back in full for what he laid out, and maybe he should have had an inkling of an idea that maybe this is too good a deal, and maybe it's still protect him. Lakech mi boy. The second lakech, who's even further removed from the Geneva, he bought it in a regular store. How am I supposed to know that the store that I bought it from a Ganav? I'm buying it mamish fair and square. So why am I not protected? Why do I have to run around now and find 40? Why can't I demand from the original full 120? Elo Omar Rabba, I disagree because of that. And in fact, Lezel Murder Safa V'Yoyev Leila Bar Mechuzah may have answered. He has to pay in full. We do protect the secondary purchaser, V'Shakol Safrei, and he can take a saver back, but he got to pay in full. The Lezel Murder Safra, and then the Murder Safra, V'Lishkal Arba Mepuna, and then the owner, it's on his onus to go after the Papuna to ask for the 40, because that's the 40 that he didn't lay out. That's 40.
They had zero relationship. At least the buyer had a relationship with the mother. Right?
There's no use. As long as there's no use, she has a right to take it back.
But I'm saying the guy's going to show up in the store and say, I was the original owner.
Yeah.
You bought stolen goods from somebody.
That's right.
The Moshe Pivik.
That's right.
And now you owe me $40.
That's
I
right.
never saw you in my life.
You made $40 on the deal.
Well, I never saw you.
I'm going to introduce myself right now. It's funny, in those days, I guess things were not mass produced. So everything was unique. Like in our days, if you got a serial number, how do you know it's the same one? In those days, there was it was before the Industrial Revolution. So every object probably had good simonim and were unique, that he would be able to prove that it's his. Right?
Depends what it is that they're, if it's a barrel of wine, right? Those.
No, the Gemara says you can tell each guy's wine has his own. Yeah, I think the Gemara talks about that.
How can they go back to the Papanoa one and demand for the profit? Like, I thought
Because you're only protected what you laid out, right? The Takanas,
not your profit.
That's right. The Takanas, right? Remember the Gemara, the Mishnah says he has to swear how much he paid for it, and he's entitled to recover what he paid for it. But to recover his profit, that's not in the Takanas. That's not in the Takanas Hashuk. It's only to protect him from losses.
And obviously, in all these cases, it must have some sentimental value or something to the owner.
Well, the owner
for
wants
him
it back.
to bother to go through this whole process.
So,
He still wants his thing back. He's out.
If he's paying every penny for what the Vibe is, just go buy another one from Amazon.
right.
At the end of the day, he's not going to pay for it because he's going to go collect it from different people, depending on who you hold right. Either he's paying 80.
The owner's paying 120 for his item the exact same way he would if he went to Amazon.
And he's getting 40 back
40 from the
from the buyer, but he'll go back to the Ghana to get the rest. He's still going to go to the Ghana. But we're not discussing that because we're discussing the Takanas Hashuk now. So that he collects from the Ghana is not Takanas Hashuk. That's stolen money. The Gemara is trying to illustrate that when you go after the Papuna, you could only demand from him his profit, but not what he laid out because the Takanas Hashuk protects him from that. Sagt Gemara, Zeh Bava Chavisai. This is a Gemara we had. Zeba b'chavisoi. Reuben's coming with his chavis of yayin, which is valuable, but not nearly as valuable as honey. Zeba b'kadosh shel dvash. Nistiga chavis shel dvash. V'shafach zes yayin v'itzalas dvash l'soy. This guy was a good Samaritan. He right away spilled out his wine so that he can capture and save the honey of his friend. The halacha is, unlike what we learned yesterday, Ein loy elos charoi. He's only entitled to the services that he provided, but he's not entitled to the loss of his wine. Well, the Gemara doesn't pass like that. Oh, because that's a trade for word. It comes from Avodah Zarah. I'm sorry. A good yeast. Good yeast. Ain't like that's right. Really wanted to say. Okay, Omar. But what if he made a deal with the guy? Atila Shalach. I am going to save your honey. Bata Noisin Li Demishali. But you have to give me the value of what I'm spilling out. So they made a deal. Then Chayiv Litum. Or the same thing. Shotaf Nachal Chamoiroi V'Chamor Chaveri. My donkey and my friend's donkey got swept up in a river. Shalo Yof Amona. His donkey is only worth Amona. V'Shal Chaveri Masayim. And he could only save one of the two donkeys. And V'Niach Zeh Shaloi. The owner of the Mana donkey didn't bother saving his donkey. V'Hitzil Shal Chaveri. But he saved the friend's donkey, which was worth Masayim. Ein Lo Yel Schari. He only gets paid for his time and for his services. But him Amar Loi. But if he told the owner of the expensive donkey, Aniatala Shulcha, I will save yours rather than my own. But you have at least have to pay me back the value of my donkey. So at least you salvage some of your donkey. Then he has to pay him. So okay, sure. Why the guy doesn't do it himself? I guess he wasn't able to. Frank the Gemara. Vamai. I don't understand. Why is it that the owner of the wine has to declare if he gets the oil, if he gets some of his money back for it, why not? He should be able to keep the whole vash. Vamai. The fellow who saved it, you're going to lose it anyway. So it's not an effort. So turn the whole thing around. Never mind how much do I get. How much do you get? You should get nothing. As Rashi says, the vash shalcha, it was going to go on the floor and get ruined. It's as if I saved it from Hefker. The person who rescued the honey should be able to keep all of it. Zokt Rashi, the Gemara is not asking this kasha in the case of Chamor. Why not? It wasn't Hefker. It was salvage. It was savable, right? So the Devash was not savable. That's Hefker. The Chamor clearly was savable, so that's not Hefker. But at least by the case of the Devash, why doesn't the person who saved the Devash get to keep it all? Miloi Tanya, did we not learn? Hareisha Yaton Kadeyayin the Kadeshemen. Someone was loaded up with Kadeyayin and Kadeshemen. V'ra Shein Nishtabris, and he saw that they were breaking, they were collapsing, and Rashi Lakol Nishbach V'Yachad, and it was all going to get destroyed in a minute. Loyoymar, don't say try to capitalize on the situation. Loyoymar Hareza Trumas Meiser Al Perish Yesh Li B'Sech Basi. So this guy was a conniving Levi, and he had Meiser at home. He says, "Hey, if I'm about to lose all this anyway, why should I take the loss? Let me put the loss on the Kohen. This is all Trumas Meiser. Oh, Kohen, I feel so bad. You Trumas Meiser, the collapse." Finally, a Levi gets an edge on things. He's not allowed to do that. V'im Omar, and if he tried it, like Omar Klum, it wouldn't work either. The problem is, how could he make it to Trumas Meiser if it's considered Hefker when it's about to collapse? It's not his. You can't make something that's Hefker into Trumas Meiser. Zokt the Heilige Rashi, Loy Omar Klum, Alma, Kivun Deli Ibudazol. This was about to be spilled on the floor. Less Buzchia, Befkeru, and you can't even make it into Trumas Meiser.
How is this a riot with the Kasha of the Gemara? It seems like the opposite.
No, it's a riot that from Hefker, you don't have a Shaykh to Hefker. So if you don't have a Shaykh to Hefker, then the person who saved the Dvash should be able to keep it. The original owner doesn't own it anymore. We're saying if you're an owner and you have wine that's about to collapse, you don't really own it anymore. It's considered Hefker. And therefore you cannot make it into Trumas Meiser. Well, if you don't own it anymore, then I can take it too. Right? You know, when it comes to crisis situations, you have to know how to capitalize on the situation. This guy was a smart guy. He's thinking, how do I salvage? I'm about to lose all my barrels. I have a way to fix it. I can push it on the coin, right? So there's a famous story with the Panovich Tarov. He was once on an airplane and it was going down. The engine failed. Everyone thought they were dying. They were screaming and screaming. So the Panovich Tarov runs to the front of the plane, says, whoever promises $100,000 to the Panovich Yeshiva, I promise you'll be safe. He had nothing to lose. He had nothing to lose. So he would have thought of that thing on the spot, on the spur thing. He lived to tell the tale. So the Panovich must have made some money on the deal. Zok the Gemara, Dr. Gemara, the teretz is the Amar of Yirmiyah in our.
But and there's no way you're saying I'm not mafkir. I'm not. It's going to save. See, it's just like the pundit
Well-
of Jerome. I'm just going to save it. He's not giving up. There's no yush. It's going down the drain. I'm not miyash. It's going to go in the drain.
But Hanuman
Someone's gonna-
Miyash. No, this is a Levi. This is a Levi. Levim are Miyash. But when it's such a big disaster, it's automatically after. So Dr.
Without
Gemara,
even saying,
Didn't we see the case where when you pour, when you fall and you trip and you have a barrel, and then the whole question is, do you want to keep those pieces and do you want to keep that liquid or not? And it seems to be the option of the person if he wants to keep the liquid. So here, even if the liquid's on the floor, if it's he still has the option of keeping it if he wants to keep it.
I don't know if it's relevant to add to your Shaila, but I know the Gemara has a discussion of if it fell in the house or if it fell on the ground outside. Sometimes it's salvageable, sometimes it's not salvageable. So here we're for sure talking about something that's completely unsalvageable.
Can't put it to something else, right?
I don't know what the Gemara used it for. I don't remember exactly, but I saw a chiluk, I think, on Kuf Design.
And doesn't it sort of, the optics of it, I mean, I see your thing, it's pouring out, I have a barrel, it's Efker, I could take it and then I'm free. Isn't it, it sounds,
But I lost my wine. I spilled out my wine. I actually.
so I should return, so I should give it back to
That's
the.
the Gemara said, just keep it. Why figure out the
But
value?
here it's saying you should be able to keep the whole thing
It was
without.
Hefker. It was Hefker. Yeah, it was Hefker. Let me ask you a question. The Allah is, we know, Zuta Shalyam Ushulush Lunar. Your wallet falls into an ocean. The wallet falls into an ocean. You're on a cruise ship and you drop a bag of gold coins worth $100,000 into the ocean. Someone jumps in and gets it. You think you should get it back? You were mafkir. You never thought you'd ever get it back. So I jumped in every time I got it.
I know the Gemara.
I know the owner, one of the people who on the Titanic is suing the expedition company. They want that shoes. They want those shoes back. It's Hefker. So there's actually a shaila in the Gemara in Bava Metzia, I think. Do we say surely miyayish, or is there a pasuk that says that's Hefker, whether you like it or not? It's out of your control. I think there's actually two shittas in why that works. But when something's completely lost, it's considered
That's
Hefker.
not what people thought when they lost the property in the war, then they're trying to get it back.
That's karka. That's karka. It's karka. Yeah. Zok to Gemara.
No one left the house. Come back.
Zok to Gemara.
At some point, they were miyash.
The case of the Levi was a case where it was all lost, and that's why it's Hefker. But our Mishnah, it wasn't all lost. You know why? There was some type of shmata that they used to have at the Beis Abad, that if they wrapped it around the jug, even though the jug was cracked and leaking, but it wasn't going to totally fall out. So therefore, the case of our Mishnah is not a total loss. How did the article define? First of all, how do you pronounce it? Okal, akel. I don't know how to read the word. Akel. And what is okal? Rashi is some type of fibrous material that you wrap around the jug with. Okay, and for some reason they had these materials in the Beis Abad.
Slows the flow.
It slows the flow. So therefore, it's not a loss. Therefore, the Bailim was not mafkeret. Kishe'egel Beis Abad korchala. Hakanami kishe'egel Bas Abad korchala. That's how we could say what our Mishnah is talking about. So Rabbi Yirmiyah said it's relevant to something else, but we can apply that to our Mishnah. Zok to Gemara. Let's go back to the case of the Levi. Bim Omar lo Omar Klo. If he said that I want this to be Trumas Meiser, it will not work. It doesn't work. Frank the Gemara. Vatanya we learned. Misha Babaderech. Somebody was coming along the road, Umois biyadai, and he has cash in his hand. Va'anas kenegdai, and he sees a band of gangsters that are going to say money or your life. So he knows he's about to lose this money. So lo yoymar, he shouldn't say, Hare payers I have payers of Meiser Sheni. I want to be mechal them almois halalu. These are all quick thinking folks. So you shouldn't do that. But Vim Omar, if you did do that, Dvar of Kayamin, it does work. So why does it work when you're Mechal Peiris? Why does it work there? Yet it doesn't work when the Levi wanted to make it into Trumas Meiser. Do the Kohanim have some type of pull with Bezdin? Omar Rav Kohen? So yes, it's an onas, but it would have been possible to somehow fight them off and win. It wasn't 100% loss. In the case of the Levi, it was 100% loss. In this case, not 100% loss. If it's not 100% loss, I could likely save it. So what's wrong? Why is it? Why lo yomar? Why not? I'm going to be machal my pace, my shein on it, and I'm going to fight for it. So it's not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. So therefore, it's not appropriate that you should say something like that. But lemaisa will work.
You're not giving me the heart.
Well, you're giving with the full heart. It's for carrots. You want it to be my sheni, so at least you have good patience when you get home.
But it's not, you have an ulterior motive.
Yeah, definitely.
There's nothing wrong, by the way, in doing it halachically that if you can give
Well,
stuck
no.
if you're in a time of trouble to promise stuck.
This is it's tzedakah. Tzedakah, that's gonna be a lot.
It's gonna be gone.
If I know I have $1 million in my pocket and I'm about to lose it, there's a gun to my head. Okay, I'll give you the tzedakah. The Bible and this, the Bible and this.
That's right. What else?
Or it's lo yomar. That's what you should be done.
No, but it's
I have an
in
uncle-
trouble and you're allowed to say the
I-
stuck and test the shit.
I have an uncle who was a multi-millionaire. He owned the biggest bank in the West Coast. He lost it all, but he had the biggest bank in the West Coast. And he knew that he was going bankrupt. He knew within 2 weeks it was over. And his daughter was involved in a bitter divorce with her soon-to-be ex-husband. He was asking for a lot of money. So a week before he went bankrupt, no one knew it. He gave him millions of dollars of shares. He got to get it. He walked away. That bomb is what it is. He would have given it to tzedakah, but instead he gave it to the item. So it's not an uncommon thing. So let's just see Toys. Toys has another catch. Forget the fact that it's not yours, it's yours. In time of the very top Toys, I feel like English Tabernami. Even if I have a barrel here that I'm not breaking, I can't make this Trumas Meiser on my solution that I have elsewhere. The loch is you're not allowed to make truma on something that's not there. If I want to be Tarim on Toronto, the stuff everything has to be in Toronto. I can't say the stuff that I have in my warehouse over there should be truma here. Because what if that gets lost or this gets lost, there's a problem with that. So you don't allow him to do that. Yeah, Shlomo, you're right. The Nokat Mishtabrois only Mishum the Moilam is the Seifa, the Amar Loyam Klum. But Avada Osher would be Osher even if it's around. Inami, it's speaking by Shabbos v'Yom Tovim Iri, Shemut Litim Shalom Namukov. If it's Shabbos and Yom Tov where you need to have food for Shabbos, then you would be able to do it, even though normally you're not allowed. I don't know if you're allowed to be mamish. Maybe right, maybe right. For Shabbos, I'm not sure what the case is. Okay, so let's see the Gemara fight. So now the Gemara says, L'chatchila l'yom so because our maskana was that the money was yochel atzilai det chak. Therefore, the chatchila you shouldn't use it to be paida payers of ma'aser sheni. Frankly, is that true? That when there's a hefted, you won't allow the chatchila to be paida ma'aser sheni. So now we're going to ask a kasha from a case that needs a little massaging to show that it's similar to this case. So let's just look at Rashi, how Rashi defines Hechadik of Seder. Here the Hechadik of Seder means that there's a strong likelihood that the money is going to get stolen, right? But let me see what Rashi says. So let's look at Rashi. The article gets it from Rashi. So let me just look at the base of the Bach so I get it in completion. The base of the Bach says, okay, we'll just see. So we're comparing a chance that I'll lose the money, a chance that I'll lose all the money to a case where I'll for sure lose some of it. The leka iba the gamri is kihocha the mukmas b'shemayat. So we're comparing ksas hefsid, a ksas hefsid where you might lose all, you might lose nothing, to you'll for sure lose something. We want to compare the two. So we're equating ksas hefsid in two different ways. So the Gemara says, what Tanya we learned? Someone that had 10 barrels of tevel that was tamei, and if I'm not mistaken, Rashi says we're talking about a Levi again. Akiva's back in the spotlight. You have 10 barrels of meiser rishon, which you're allowed to eat when they're tamei, and all this tevel is tamei. Rashi says, "Hatovel trumas meiser, v'hu tamei," and therefore the trumas meiser today loichazi lekoin l'shtia l'zalet. If you make tamei tevel into truma or trumas meiser, the kohen is not allowed to eat truma tamea, but he's allowed to burn it and have enough from it. So what are you going to do with wine that's tame? You can use it to ionize, to make it into a vapor, to vaporize, and it creates a nice aroma in your house. That's really all you can use it for. If it was wood that was tame, or if it was oil that was tame, he can use it to light. It doesn't benefit. But if it's wine, all he can really use it for is to create a scent in his house. So the halach is, which means it's not a total loss. He saw one of them is breaking. Oimer, he could say, really what he should do is you should take another barrel of tahor, tevel, and make that truma. So don't take one of the tummy ones that's breaking anyway and say, I raise you trumas meiser al tesha chavrisa. You shouldn't, I'm sorry, you should do that. You may do that even the chatchila. So here, when you're doing the chatchila, there's definitely a hefset mu'at, because the kohen could still use it, not a total write-off, yet you see he could do it. So how could you tell me when there's a chance that the honest is going to take the money away? I'm not allowed to use it to be paid in my sheni. Here you see, if there's a partial loss, lechatchila, you're allowed to make it into trumas meiser. Uveshemen lo yas, again, by shemen you can't do it, they have set coin, because the coin would have been able to use it to light fires with. That's very valuable. That's a big loss. For a little loss, we'll allow it. For a big loss, we won't. So you have a chloride here. That's for a little loss. You look at chila, you allow him to make it into trumas meiser. Rabbi Yirmiyah, here also it's not a little loss at all. It's not going to collapse. So it's not even a little loss, and that's why you could do it lechatchila. So it's Rashi lechashav psheida kulahai kagoin zeh shein yochel hatel el yedetcha. It's not as bad as that case. It's better than this case.
Didn't have this equal.
Sorry?
The mice said that you would be able to.
I'm sorry?
If there was going to be.
Right, because it's not such a big loss. But the case here where it says that you could do it is because it's not going to be even a little loss. Not even be a little loss. So when Bishlama Shanishbra, in the case where it broke, Chazi, it's going to be he can use it in the case where the barrel broke. Because look at the case over here. The case was V'ra Mem Shanishbra Shanishgalsa. Nishbra means it's a total loss because it's spilling out. So we said you can use it because either it could be sabad, right? Or if it's oil, you could light it. But nisgalsa means it was left uncovered and therefore you can't drink from it anymore because maybe a snake's venom is in there. So if that's the case, el nisgalsa l'may chazi, that has no value at all. The Gemara is going to ask that as ever. But right now, let's assume that it has zero value. If it has zero value, Zok Rashi, you see that we're not worried for a half set mu'at. Okay, Zok Gemara, if you're going to tell me, what do you mean? What do you mean? It's still a royal for ziluf, even though it was niskalsa. But Tanya, we learned, Maim shenisgalu, if you have water that was uncovered and now we're afraid of snake's venom, hareza lo yishbachem v'shus harabim, you're not allowed to spill them out in v'shus harabim. By the way, if you take the venom of a king cobra that can kill you in minutes and you drink it, you know what happens to you? Nothing. Venom only hurts if it enters your bloodstream. It will not impact you in your digestive tract. So why does it say lo yishbachem b'shus harabim? So Rashi shelo yaver aleim odam yachaf. Person shouldn't walk barefoot on it. Because orish shel nachash b'ragloi aydemakas tzor. So I guess when you drink it, maybe the danger is if you have a sore in your mouth, the venom will enter your bloodstream. But if the venom enters your digestive tract, there's zero danger. I don't recommend you test it. Vatanya ma'im shenisgalu ereza lo yishbachem v'shus harabim.
Guarantee you don't have any ulcers.
That's right. That's right. You shouldn't even use them to make tit. Why? Or actually, Rashi, the gears here takes it out. Maybe someone will cut himself while he's doing it. That's when you pour water on a dusty floor to get the dust to settle. You shouldn't even let your behemoth eat it. You know why? Rashi says, which is very fascinating. What's the problem with if the animal eats it, how is that going to hurt you? But maybe if it's still untouched in the digestive tract and you cut your finger and you touch it, That's probably what the problem is. V'loi behemes chaveiroi, and you shouldn't even let your chaver's animal drink from it. Zok to Gemara, you know why? You know why it's still valuable? The overlap of misanenes kreb nechemia. It's still chazel azil. Sure, live you can't do anything with it, but if you strain it, it will strain out the venom, and then you could still use it for zilov. Zok Rashi misanenes kli al gabe kli. It's usually a strainer on top of a receptacle. Normally, if you want to get more liquid out of the pieces of the olive or the grape, you put them into the strainer, and the wine will drain down into the receptacle below. So there you could mitigate the issue of niskals. Where does Reb Nechemia say Mishanenis protects you? Because the Brisa says, the Tanakama says, Mishanenis yesh mishum giloi. Now, Reb Nechemia, when do you say yesh mishum giloi? That's only if the bottom keli that the wine drains into is uncovered, because maybe Aris went right into the bottom one. But if the bottom keli that catches the drained wine through the filter is sealed and there's no concern that a snake got there, why? It's like a sponge. It's not able to penetrate the filter. So Zakti Gemara, Lav Itmar Allah. Didn't Rab Simon say on it? Amar Rab Simon, Amar Rab Yeshua ben Levi, Loi Shana El Shaloi Tarku. When do you say that it doesn't penetrate the filter? That's if you didn't mish it around. But Abel Tarka Yasser. So Rashi is talking about Shaloi Irvoy Adam. In Reb Nechemia's case, you're straining, no one touching it. That's where you'll say that there's no danger. But in our case, with these barrels, and these barrels, here, what are you saying? It's still valuable because you could strain it. While you're straining it, it's being mished around. They're matrik umispalbul arsim in a. Yes, if venom just falls into a strainer, it will remain intact. It won't get through the strainer. But if venom falls into a barrel and it gets mixed up, then it will become diluted. So once again, you have a product that has zero value to it at all. Zok to Gemara, Hasam Nami, Evshir the Monach Midi Apuma de Chavisa the Shafile. You could still put something onto the barrel that it's being poured into, and I guess the mixing happens when you pour it over. And you could still put a strainer there that would prevent. It's still possible to prevent. I'm not sure exactly how you would do it, but it's still possible to prevent the poison. So there's still value in here that you're not messing up. According to Gemara, Rab Nechemia, mitar minon. According to Rab Nechemia, we're saying that you would be able to be tired. You'd be able to take this and make this tamei. Well, because what was the case here? The case was. Let me go back over here. He had tevel tummy, right? So it's mashma that if it wasn't for the fact that it was nishbra, you'd be able to separate this tevel tummy. How could that be? Rabbi Nechemia, mi tarminon, could you be tired from tummy on tummy? But Tanya we learned tarmin min atame ala tummy, uminatar ala tar, uminatar ala tummy, avoloi min atame ala tar. That's the Tanakama. But Rabbi Nechemia Eimer af min atame ala tummy lo yitir litrin. Ela b'shel demai. So how in our Mishnah it's talking about a tummy? How could you want to go according to Reb Nechemia? Otherwise, you're not going to be able to explain when there was this galsa. According to Reb Nechemia, even if the barrel wasn't broken, you could never be tired from tummy on tummy. So how does this work? Sorry. Oh, so Gemara exactly. We'll say that the Brisa was speaking b'shel demai. The Gemara like literally spoon fed that to us. Okay. Zok to Gemara vayt. Amar mar ubeshemen lo yasakein. Don't do it by oil because they're just have the coin. Because even though it was tummy, the oil is still valuable to the coin. So by you giving the broken barrel to the coin, you're messing up the coin. You're telling me shemen has value, good value, you could light it. And therefore there's hefs to the coin. Yain nami royal azilov. Yain is royal azilov. So that's valuable. That's valuable. The value of zilov isn't nearly as much as the value of oil, so we don't give it that value. Therefore, it's not a problem of being mafs the coin. Shoishin miloig besela. If you want to buy a drink to drink, you would only pay a seller for it. But if you want to buy it for ziluf, so you clearly see that the highest use, the most valuable use of something, even more than eating it, is ziluf. So how could you tell me that ziluf is not a big loss? Ziluf is big. So Gemara, that's if you have nice aged wine that has a beautiful aroma. The wine that we're talking about here is Farbrengen 3%. It's grape juice that Simon convinces himself is wine so that he can drink it by the Seder and by Kiddush. But it's really grape juice. Frank the Gemara, the Haroi Liyashnai. It's still valuable. Yes, right now you can't do ziluf, but you could let it sit until it ferments, and then you'll be able to use it. So it still has value as ziluf. So Gemara, no. Also, we don't want him to leave this sitting around in his house and wait, because in the meantime, someone might drink it. It's too dangerous. It's too dangerous. So therefore, we won't even tell him to do that. We'll tell him to split out right away. Frank Gemara, Shema Nami also beit the color. You might use the oil in your food as well. The Gemara, no, the manach bechlimos. You make sure to put the oil into a miyas acheres that nobody would want to use it for cooking. Frank Gemara, yain nami manach le bechlimos. So store it and let it ferment in the echi smelly keli. So Gemara, that's not logical. Hashilo zilav kaboile. The whole reason why he's aging it is that it should have a good smell. It should be appetizing. Bechlimos kamonach le. Of course, he's not going to put it in the klimos. And this whole shaila, if we're concerned about the kala, is a machlokes tonight. The Tanya we learned, chavis shel yain shel truma shenitmas. You have a barrel of wine of truma that became tamei. Beishamei oimim tishbech hakoil. Spill it all out right away. We're very concerned of takala. We still oimim no tasa ziluf. Let it stick around. Let's use it for ziluf. You could still benefit from the wine. The kohen can benefit from the wine. Omri b'shmo b'rayossi. I'm going to come up the middle and have a happy compromise between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. Now I'm going to say, Bibayis, if it's in your house, Tasa Ziluf, you should make Ziluf. Because if you pour it on the floor, it's not going to absorb and you're going to be back in trouble again. But with Sod, if it's in the field where it'll get absorbed and then it'll avoid any takala, then Tishafach HaKol. Ika de Amri, there are those who say, Biyoshin Tasa Ziluf, Ubechodesh Tishafach. Other ones said that what was Rabbi Shmuel bar Yossi's compromise? If it's old, make ziluf, and if it's grape juice, then split out. Amrullah, they told him, shlishis machras. You're coming up the middle, so you think, so everyone's going to pass like you because you came out the middle. No, it doesn't work that way. The only time it works that way is if through your psak, in each of your cases, you have 2 against 1. So, for instance, let's say Beis Shammai said, tasa ziluf, sai if it's in the house. Sai if it's in the field. And Beis Hillel said, I'm sorry, if Beis Shammai said Tishavach HaKoil, Sai in the house, Sai in the field, and Beis Hillel said, Sai here, Sai there, and then you said, I passed with Beis Shammai here, Beis Hillel there, then you say you're Machriya, because in the case of bias, it's you and Beis Shammai against Beis Hillel, and in the case of the Sada, it's you and Beis Hillel against Beis Shammai. But they never said that reasoning. They never made that chiluk. That's not called Achra, so now you're just a third party, and we don't hold like anybody. Now you just made it more confusing. Ein achra shlishis machras. Okay, we'll stop here. Be'ez Hashem. We'll be mamshech tomorrow. It was a long daf. It took us over an hour to do, but I got to push ahead. There were no shortcuts here. This was a complicated daf.
I have a feel. A lot of people probably get a mosque and irrigate my field with that. There's no issue with that. But the rest of your vegetables growing from somebody.
Have a wonderful day.